It was about a year before Senator John McCain died that I heard a reporter ask him, "What do you want to do with the final days of your life?" And McCain thought about it for a little while, and then he responded with words that I so often hear from members of our own community confronting terminal illness. He said to the reporter, "I just want to be home. I don't want to go on a big trip or climb a final mountain." He just wanted to be home and do what he had always done: read the newspaper, eat some breakfast, drink some coffee, and most of all, be with friends and family. And he wanted to do it intentionally, without distraction or reporters or a congressional vote. He just wanted to watch his family move around him in the kitchen or look outside the window and see the birds flying. Not because he had never done it before, but because he had often done it before. And he wanted to remember the joys of his life. I once met a man from our congregation who was confronting death. He too was told by his doctor that it was time to tackle his bucket list. And he said, "I'm sorry, doc, but I don't have to, because I've lived my bucket list every day of my life." He didn't want to speed up, he wanted to slow down. So then, his family asked him, they told me, "What would you like to do?" And the man said, "Salmon. I just want to eat salmon." And his family responded, "Salmon? You don't even really like salmon. How about a big steak, a fancy dinner? Let's go out." And he said, "I've eaten salmon at weddings and bar mitzvahs and business gatherings and family occasions, and I just want to close my eyes and taste it for as long as I can and remember all the life that I've shared." And so the next night, I'm told, they had a great meal together. He ate salmon. And then he got up from the table and he said, "Thanks, everybody. I think I've had enough." And he died the next morning. And I tell you this story not to bring us down. I tell you this story to raise us up. Because Yom Kippur is actually our day to consider our deaths, to enable us to refocus on our lives and commit ourselves to a life lived fully with meaning. That's why we wear white, symbolic of the burial shrouds in which Jews are traditionally buried. We're told not to eat or drink or have sex, no life-affirming acts for 24 hours, just time to explore our lives by exploring our deaths. And in the most dramatic demonstration of this all, on Yom Kippur, on Kol Nidre last night, we actually open up our holy ark, the Aron HaKodesh, and we take out the Kodesh, the holy, the scrolls, so that all we're left with is the Aron, which is the Hebrew word for casket. For it is then that we are told to actually look at our casket as we simulate our deaths to confront our own mortality and ask the question, how are we going to live our lives? Are we focused on the things that ultimately give life meaning? And as a rabbi of this congregation now for 19 years, I'm I'm sad to say that I often see people get distracted, chasing after the wrong things. As my colleague Eddie Feinstein likes to say, as a rabbi, I've never been to a cemetery and seen a tombstone that says graduate of Harvard or CEO of a big firm. Instead, the tombstones call out relationships over and over again. Loving father, gentle mother, loyal friend. I've never been to a funeral where a child or a grandchild gets up and delivers a beautiful eulogy which says, I wish my loved one made more money, or I wish my loved one spent more time at work. But I often hear their plea for a few more words, one more hug, one more playful moment together. And so today, this is our day to recalibrate our lives and not let life get in the way. You see, I recently read that the average adult in America spends only 50% of their time in the present moment. Pretty scary. We are so often distracted, running, achieving, multitasking. Perhaps that's why researchers at Dartmouth and the University of Pennsylvania recently found that it is older adults who, on the whole, are more likely to record that they're happy. It's actually quite a finding because you might think that age, with all of its physical challenges, and the realization that you actually have less time to accomplish all that you want to do, would actually lead to a decline in overall happiness. And yet the study consistently demonstrates that on the whole, it is older adults that are happier than younger ones. Because it was the older adults who were more aware of how time is fleeting and more likely to relish the moments of every day. So yesterday there was an article in the New York Times. I'm thankful to Rabbi Sherman for pointing it out to me. The article pointed out a new app that's called We Croak. True story, it's based on a Bhutanese tradition, according to the article. But this new app that you can download on your phone will ping you 5 times a day and then place the message on your phone, don't forget, you're going to die. It costs $1 to download. I think we should try it. Don't forget, you're going to die. 5 times a day. We get it once a year. There's a story of a man who had aged and so made his way to the attic to look for a picture of his wife, now long gone. But while looking for the album, he picked up a journal from his grown son's childhood. He couldn't ever recall having ever seen it before. His wife must have placed it up there a long time ago. He didn't even know that his son kept a journal. But he opened it in its yellow pages and glanced over a short reading, and his lips curved into a big smile as he read the words of this little boy who had grown up so fast in that big house. And the words of a 6-year-old worked their magic, carrying this man back to a time almost forgotten. Entry after entry stirred a sentimental hunger in his heart, but it was accompanied by a painful memory that his son's recollections were very different than his own. But how different, he wondered, and then he realized that he too kept a journal. It was downstairs and it recorded all of his travel and business activities. And so he closed his son's journal in the attic and went downstairs to find his own. And he pulled out that journal. He knew exactly where it is. And he placed the 2 journals side by side, sat down at his desk. His was leather bound and neatly engraved with his name in gold. His son's was tattered, and the name Bobby had nearly been scuffed from its surface. And he opened his journal, and he opened to the page that stood out, an inscription so brief in comparison to the other days. It said in his own neat handwriting, "Wasted the whole day fishing with Bobby. Didn't catch a thing." And with a deep sigh, he took out Bobby's journal and found the boy's entry with large scrawling letters. June 4th, went fishing with my dad. Best day of my life. My friends, the world is complicated, and there are many topics that we could discuss today. But on this day of Yom Kippur, I just want us to refocus on life and whether we're doing the right things, whether we're living life with intention, with kindness, with love, or in the words of our Torah portion, "Uvacharta b'chaim." Are we choosing life so that we and our descendants will live? Because if the answer is no, or even if the answer is not exactly, I hope we can take some time today to think about how we can live life differently this year. Speak differently, act differently, behave differently, perhaps love differently, and do the things that need to be done and say the things that need to be said. And make sure that we live our lives with purpose and meaning, with a deep sense of joy and gratitude. And so here we go, the challenge. If you are over the age of 40, and I made that number up, I don't know why 40, but I just like it, and you haven't spoken with your family about death, I hope you will do so after services or sometime this week. And if you're over the age of 10, I don't know why I made up that number, but I just like it, and you haven't spoken with your family about life, I hope you will do so after services or sometime this week. Because we know that the book of life is open and the next chapter of our journal has yet to be written. And so let's get back to salmon. Because I am told that it is around this week that something pretty amazing happens with salmon. And it's not the sale at Whole Foods or Roach Brothers. The fishermen know this in the congregation. But I'm told that starting in September, there is something called the Salmon Run, where salmon do something very unusual with their lives. They exit the ocean where they've spent their adulthood, and they actually swim upstream through the narrow rivers to spawn on gravel beds. Thousands of them travel up these rivers all at once. It's quite a sight to see. I'm told that tourists actually go out west to see it. But what's amazing about the salmon run is that at the moment the salmon arrive to the top of the river, they spawn. And when they spawn, something extraordinary happens. Their scales blacken, and their jaws lock, and they actually begin to lose their life force, and they get ready to die. But before they do something that captures the attention of everyone that sees it. They jump. These salmon, they jump out of the water so high and so often that it's one of the beauties of nature. And so people ask, why do the salmon jump? Well, some say that it's actually an instinct developed over time to avoid the rocks in the river so that they can make it upstream. Others say, no, it's actually not that reason. They would be able to navigate the rocks. The salmon actually jump to fill their bladders with air because their organs are failing and they need to remain buoyant to make it all the way upstream. But I read another reason this week that I'd like to share with you. why the salmon jump. And it's not to avoid rocks, and it's not to fill their bladders with air. I read that perhaps the salmon jump because they are filled with joy. And so they jump high, knowing that successfully they have run their journey because they've spawned. They've lived a life of purpose. They've done what God intended them to do. And that's my prayer for all of us, that we live a life of purpose and do what God intended us to do. And I'm not sure what that is for each and every one of you, but I pray that you take some time this High Holy Days to explore it. And God willing, in the year ahead, accomplish it. So that when you ultimately do get up from that table, you too can say, thanks, everybody. I think I've had enough. L'Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this time is blessed for you. This time is blessed and shining almost blinding bright. Just turn your head and you'll begin to see the 1,000 reasons that were just beyond your sight. The reasons why I suggest to you, why I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a word that's been addressed to you, intended only for your eyes. A secret world, like a treasure chest to you, of private scenes and brilliant dreams that mesmerize. A lover's trusting smile, a tiny baby's hands, the million stars that fill the turning sky at night. Oh, I suggest to you, I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a hope that's been expressed in you, the hope of 7 generations, maybe more. This is the faith that they invest in you. It's that you'll do one better than was done before. Inside you'll know, inside you'll understand, inside you'll know what's yours to finally set it right. And I suggest to you, I suggest this is the best part of your life. This is a song, comes from the west to you, comes from the west, comes from the slowly setting sun, with our request of you, to see how very short the endless days will run. And when they're gone, and when the dark descends, we'd give anything for one more hour of light. And I suggest this is the best part of your life.